Now that we're done creating all the general pieces, let's give a little bit more attention to this handle. I'll open up my subtool palette. I'm going to select the handle and then click the little eye swatch to turn off all the other subtools. This handle's still fairly low res and doesn't really have a lot of detail. So let's divide this. I'll hit Control D to divide a few times. And what we want to do is do a mesh extraction to get a handle butt here, which is going to be used to kind of weight the sword a little bit and add a little bit more detail. So to do this, I'll hold down the Control key and I'll just click and drag and make a square mask over that area. You can make this as big or as small as you want. Once that's drawn in, I'll simply hit Extract. We'll talk about this later. So for right now, I'll just turn that off and then hold down Control and click and drag so that I can clear that. Now what we want to do is find the color that we're going to be applying to this handle. We're going to be using a material and a color. So in our material palette, I'll choose something kind of like an ivory white. Maybe something with a bit more gloss in it. That looks pretty good. Now that we've created the color that we want, let's go ahead and bake this in by using Fill Object. I'll go up to Color, and we're going to push this button Fill Object. But before you do that, make sure you have mRGB turned on. This means that we want to fill both the material and the color. Currently we just have RGB turned on, which means if we press Fill Object, we'll just fill it with the color. Then if we try to change our material, it'll change up. So let's click mRGB, go to Color, and then Fill Object. Now that we've done that, if we change our material, you'll notice that the material on that surface actually doesn't change. It's been baked in, unless we go back to Color and then fill color for a new material. Now that we've done that, we want to paint a mask on the surface. We're going to be using this mask to isolate some detailed areas and also painting in some fabric or pieces of cloth to add the grip to this handle. But before we do that, we want to affect our lazy mouse settings. Lazy mouse will give us a very precise stroke on the surface. You can find this under the stroke palette. So I'll open that up and I'll activate lazy mouse by simply clicking on the icon. You're also going to want to take your lazy mouse steps down to 0. This is going to make a very smooth stroke. I'll go to my transform palette and dock that over to the right. That way again I can click activate symmetry and then turn on X and Y. That way I get these 4 symmetrical points. So whatever I do on the front here will be mirrored on the back of this handle. Now we want to paint in our mask. In my alpha palette, I'll pick a very hard alpha, like this square. My stroke is just my regular dot stroke. I'll tap S to take my draw size down a bit. And I'll hold down Control so I can start painting in a mask. Start in the middle at the top and just click and drag and draw this in. I start as far as I can over on the left hand side and then click and drag and just make a cross. Same thing, start as far over to the right or left, then click and drag. And we'll do this all the way to the bottom. Okay, now that we have our alpha drawn in, we want to add a little bit of detail to the surface. With this, I'm going to use my standard brush. I'll change my stroke over to spray, and I'll choose an alpha something like alpha 32 or 31 with a little bit of noise in it. I'm going to turn off symmetry so I can make this look a little bit more natural. Let's do a test. Okay, looking pretty good, but you'll notice we're also painting our material. So I'm going to hit Control Z to turn that off. I'll turn off RGB and M so that we're not working with any material or color settings and we're not painting on the surface. Currently we just have Z add turned on. Let's take our intensity down a little bit. And at this point we don't need our lazy mouse feature anymore, so I'm going to go back up to stroke and just click lazy mouse to turn that off. Take my draw size up a bit and just paint a little bit of detail on the surface. So that detail is only be painted where we don't have a mask. Good, so you can make this as smooth or as rough as you like. So now that we've painted that detail into the surface, let's go ahead and invert this mask. I'm going to hold down the Control key and just tap in an empty area. Now that mask is flipped over. Now that the mask is inverted, I'll go down to Deformations in my tool palette, open that up, and we'll use Inflate. I'll scroll this over to the right a few times. Once you get that surface popping out as much as you like, we can hold down Control, click and drag in an empty area, and now we've cleared our mask. Now if you're fine with this color, you can clear your mask and work with it that way. But in this case I'm going to hit Control Z to undo to bring that mask back. What we want to do is paint these lines out black so we can mimic some fabric or black cloth. So with our mask back in place, I'm going to turn off Z-Add because I don't want to do any more sculpting. What I will turn on is RGB. If you like the shiny material, then you can just keep it at RGB. If you would like to change your material, we can click mRGB. That way we're painting both with a new material that we select and a new color. So I'm going to select a not so shiny shader. I'll change my stroke back to dot stroke and my alpha back to a soft alpha, and then we'll take our color to black. This way we can just paint in on the surface. Now this material is kind of taking over our color a bit much. So what we're going to do is undo that. I'm going to find a flat color or our fast shader and then switch this back to RGB. That way we can paint in just black. Okay, now that we've painted that in, we can hold down Control and then click and drag to clear our mask. That way we have our nice white ivory underneath and our painted ribbon or grip on top. Now let's turn back on the visibility of all our subtools. And you can see we haven't applied a material to them yet, so they're coming in with whatever material and color we choose. So now let's take a moment to add material to all those pieces.